Hey, this is Enaa in with you in the Fight Back, and I wanted to. This is a semi FAQ on: is there a peaceful road to socialism? Can we take power through the ballot box? And this is because most revolutions that have occurred under the banner of socialism or Marxism or even anarchism have been largely through either armed struggle, mass insurrection, in some form, in one way or another, taking up the gun. And there hasn't been too much in the way of peaceful roads to socialism or attempts. The most well known is that of Chile under Salvador Allende's popular unity government. We could argue about Venezuela, but I'd rather just focus on Chile because that's probably one of the more well known. And in Chile, the government of Allende was overthrown in a coup after about 3 years. And these peaceful roads are not likely to succeed for a variety of reasons. Now, Che Guevara, the Argentine revolutionary and guerrilla leader, he wrote Guerrilla Warfare, dealing with the theory and practice of guerrilla warfare. Makes sense. And he says before you can launch a revolutionary war, the there are certain conditions that have to be met. One is that the government that has come to power through some form of if a government has come to power through some form of vote, maintains some appearance of constitutional legality, the guerrilla outbreak can't be promoted. So he's arguing, in a sense, before we can start launching armed struggle, peaceful avenues have to be exhausted. And he's saying, almost in a sense, popular movement should consider the ballot box. I know he doesn't actually have a lot of faith in such actions, but he does say you got to utilize it first. Now, in countries like Cuba, where there was a dictatorship of Batista, armed revolution can be justified because there's really no peaceful avenue at all. So in a sense, peaceful avenues open, why not take them? But there's a lot of problems if you take the peaceful road. You not only have to win at the polls, but you have to put your program into action through established institutions or the established state apparatus. And that state apparatus is designed to maintain a certain mode of production, capitalism, that would be rather hostile to a potential socialist mode of production. So there's a tension there. And that state is really the tool of the ruling class, the bourgeoisie, perhaps in alliance with landowners. And I'm going to say, pretty much, expecting a capitalist state, however democratic, to transform itself into socialism, like asking a man to live suicide. Because do you really expect the ruling class to give up their power voluntarily, or because it's legalized? And the ruling class, they're not going to give up power. They're going to resist. They'll try to resist change legally, of course, through the parliaments and whatnot, and voting if they can. But they also do illegal means. In Chile, this is seen with capital flight, destruction of equipment at their copper mines, and ultimately a military coup. But let's say, for instance, that the peaceful change is actually proceeding. It's actually making some significant progress. This can arouse the masses, the workers and the peasants. And they'll seek more radical ends. So let's say in Chile there was nationalization of the mines and such not and when Allende is actually elected, for him it's seen as like a legal form of struggle through parliaments and whatnot. For the masses, it has different meaning. It's almost a signal for them to take their destiny into their hands and to try and fulfill what they can through direct action from below. And in this sense, their radicalization of the masses, it tends to push past legal limits, and it can lead to a clash with the bourgeoisie and the state, and it can lead to potential armed struggle. Because even in Chile, by the end, radical wings of Allende's coalition and parties outside it were actually beginning to stockpile arms for an eventual clash, because there had been an attempted coup. But let's say, and even in Chile, let's say you can overcome the bourgeoisie. Unlikely, I would argue. But you really have the another element, and it depends on what country, of course, you're in. But it's really U.S. imperialism. They have extensive investments in Latin America. They try to extract resources, and they just exploit the whole region. And nationalization, agrarian reform, and of course, popular power would take these resources out of the hands of U.S. corporations and get them back to the population. So the U.S. is, of course, going to work with their allies in the comprador allies of the bourgeoisie in Latin America, and do what they can to contain popular struggle. So for the U.S., their idea of freedom is not what we would consider like a free democracy, workers' control of the means of production. It's really, can U.S. corporations come in here? Can they exploit? And in this sense, they're willing to tolerate things such as Spain under Franco, El Salvador, Chile under Pinochet, who was the dictator who came after Allende. And if they can't, exploit the area, they're going to consider the area unfree. Because peaceful change is bound to invite intervention, not just internally, but externally, because they can threaten the status quo as much as guerrillas. And the truth is, peaceful change often, when socialist parties come into power, whether in France or Spain recently, or a few years ago, they tend not to have radical transformation programs. They're just better. They might be slightly better managers of the system than their conservative counterparts. And even peaceful change, Allende made a lot of compromises and tended to try and rein things in. But even if peaceful change does go for the jugular of capitalism and tries to overthrow it, it's going to face reaction, and you got to be prepared for that, because peaceful change can transform into some form of armed struggle. I dealt with this in a link below that, looking at Allende in Latin America, and you can look at that. So this is Enaa. Until next time.